In this video, what we'll show is the calibration of the SEC 3000 sensor. I've chosen an oxygen sensor to calibrate. It's located on sensor number 1 on the 3120 transmitter. And so first what you'll do is you'll take your magnet, go to enter, and then arrow down to calibration, and then select enter. And then you select the sensor that you want to calibrate, which is sensor 1. So we do want to calibrate that. And the first step in calibrating it is zeroing it. We have a calibration adapter that we screw onto the end of the sensor. This allows us to connect up to the calibration gas cylinders. And we thread that on. And then we have a flow regulator and tubing that we slide onto the barb fitting. And then we have the calibration gas cylinder. And to zero the oxygen sensor, I guess it must have timed out. Zero, what we'll do is we'll open up the cal gas cylinder. And then we can actually see the reading of the sensor once we selected the zero, and you'll see that applying nitrogen to the oxygen sensor is going to drive the signal down. And you'll always want to zero the oxygen sensor in nitrogen, because normally it's going to be sensing, oxygen presence. So we can use the ambient air to actually span the oxygen sensor or a different calibration gas cylinder. So what you'll do is you'll just apply the nitrogen, let it flow. Typically we're using a liter per minute flow regulator to apply the nitrogen gas to it. And once the sensor reading remains stable, hopefully somewhere around 0%, then we would actually zero calibrate the sensor. As you can see, it's still slowly moving down. So it looks pretty steady. It's reading 1.5, 1.6. So I'll just go ahead and zero the sensor. So now the transmitter's zeroing the sensor to the nitrogen gas being applied to it. And it goes through its little calibration procedure. Once it's complete, it just uploads the date. And now the oxygen sensor is zeroed. So the next procedure would be to span the sensor. In this case, we'd have a cylinder of 20.9 calibration gas. Or we can just use the ambient air to calibrate the sensor as well. If you ever need to replace the sensor, you would just unscrew this cover, and that would allow you access to the sensor element. It also helps if you unscrew the cover to release some of the nitrogen that's trapped in the sensor housing from the previous calibration, the zero calibration. So we've allowed the oxygen to get back up into the sensor, and we just screw the cover back on. So normally I could say the ambient air contains 20.9 or 21% by volume oxygen. So what we'll do now is we'll just span the sensor against the ambient air. So we just select enter, and now it's spanning the sensor, so it should change that reading back to from 19.5 to 20.9. And there it goes, 20.8. So now we just exit, go to the previous menu, arrow down, and so now that's the oxygen sensor calibrated.